I was visiting a wildlife sanctuary some time ago, and I had the most incredible opportunity to observe elephants up close. As I stood there watching these magnificent creatures, I was struck by something profound. Here was this animal, so powerful, so massive, capable of uprooting entire trees with its trunk. Yet, in captivity, it stands tied to a small wooden peg with a thin rope. And it doesn't even try to break free. I asked the keeper, how is this possible? This elephant could easily snap that rope and walk away. And he smiled and said, when the elephant was young, we used the same rope. Back then, it tried and tried to break free, but couldn't. Eventually, it stopped trying. Now, even though it has the strength to break free, it doesn't even attempt it because it believes it can't. My friends, as I stood there, I realized that this elephant story is the story of so many of us. We are that elephant. Somewhere in our past, we tried something and failed. We faced rejection, disappointment, criticism. We attempted to break free from our limitations and couldn't. And slowly, over time, we stopped trying. We accepted those limitations as permanent truths about ourselves. We carry invisible ropes that tie us down, not because they're strong, but because we believe they are. Today, I want to talk to you about what I call the elephant mindset and more. Importantly, how we can break free from it. Let me ask you something. What dreams have you given up on? What goals have you stopped pursuing? What version of yourself have you abandoned because somewhere along the way you convinced yourself that you're not capable, you're not talented enough, you're not worthy enough? Maybe you wanted to start a business, but told yourself you're not entrepreneurial. Maybe you wanted to learn a new skill, but decided you're too old. Maybe you wanted to heal a relationship, but concluded it's impossible. Maybe you wanted to change careers, but believed you're stuck where you are. And just like that elephant, you stand there powerful and capable, tied down by beliefs that are no longer true. If they ever were, the elephant mindset is not about the elephant being weak. It's about the elephant not knowing its own strength. It's about living below your potential because you're operating based on outdated information about who you are and what you're capable of. And here's the tragedy. While the elephant stands tied to that peg, the whole forest awaits. Adventures, freedom, possibilities, a fuller expression of what it means to be an elephant, but it will never experience any of that until it challenges the rope. Now, you might be wondering, where do these ropes come from? How did we get tied down? Let me tell you. The first rope is childhood conditioning. When we were young, we absorbed messages from everyone around us. Parents, teachers, relatives, society. And many of these messages, though often well-intentioned, became limiting beliefs. You're not good at math, you're too shy, you're not athletic, you're not creative. People like us don't do things like that. And as children, we didn't have the wisdom to question these statements. We accepted them as facts. We internalized them. And they became the ropes that tie us down even decades later. I met a woman once who told me she never pursued singing, even though she loved it. Because when she was 8 years old, a music teacher told her she was tone deaf. 40 years, she carried that statement as truth. 40 years. Until one day, she decided to take a singing class as an adult. And the instructor was amazed at her natural ability. All those years, tied down by a single thoughtless comment from someone who probably doesn't even remember making it. The second rope is past failures. We all fail. Failure is not the problem. Failure is part of growth, part of learning, part of being human. But what we do with failure, that's what matters. Some people fail and they learn, they adjust, they try again with new wisdom, but others fail and they conclude something permanent about themselves. They say, I failed at this, therefore I am a failure. They say, this didn't work, therefore I can't do it. They generalize one experience into a lifetime identity. And from that moment, they stop trying. Think about a child learning to walk. They fall down hundreds of times. Can you imagine if after the 10th fall, they just sat there and thought, well, I guess I'm just not a walker. Some people walk. But that's not me. I tried and I failed. I should just accept my limitations and crawl for the rest of my life. Absurd, right? Yet this is exactly what we do as adults. We try something once, twice, maybe 3 times. It doesn't work out. And we conclude, this is not for me. We tie ourselves to that peg of past failure. And we stop attempting to break free. The third rope is comparison. Oh, this is a big one. We look at others and we see their success, their talents, their achievements. and we feel inadequate. We think, they're so much better than me. What's the point of even trying? We don't see their struggles, their failures, their years of practice. We just see the end result, and we compare our beginning to their middle or end. And in that comparison, we diminish ourselves. We tie ourselves down. I'll tell you something important. There will always be someone ahead of you in some area. Always. If your sense of possibility is dependent on being the best, on being better than everyone else, you will forever be tied. Because there will always be someone more talented, more experienced, more successful in that particular domain. But here's the beautiful truth. Your journey is not about being better than others. It's about being better than you were yesterday. It's about expressing your unique potential, not copying someone else's path. The fourth rope is comfort. This might surprise you. We think we want growth, we want change, we want to break free. But growth is uncomfortable. Change is uncertain. Freedom comes with responsibility. And so even when we're not happy with where we are, we stay there because it's familiar. We know this cage, we've adapted to it. Breaking free means entering unknown territory, and that's scary. So we choose the comfort of our limitations over the uncertainty of our potential. I've seen people stay in jobs they hate, in relationships that drain them, in cities where they don't belong, in versions of themselves that feel small. All because the familiar pain feels safer than the unknown possibility. The rope of comfort is perhaps the most deceptive because it disguises itself as safety, as being realistic, as being responsible. But really, it's just fear wearing a respectable mask. Now, here's what I want you to understand. These ropes, all of them, they were real at some point. When the elephant was young, the rope genuinely held it. When you were a child, you genuinely didn't have certain capabilities. When you first tried something and failed, you genuinely didn't know how to do it yet. But you're not that person anymore. You've grown, you've learned, you've developed strength and wisdom you didn't have before. The rope that held you then cannot hold you now unless you believe it can. So how do we develop what I call the liberated mindset? How do we break free from these invisible ropes? Let me share some insights with you first. You must become aware of your limiting belief. S. You cannot change what you don't acknowledge. Most of us go through life with these beliefs running in the background like software we didn't know we installed. We need to bring them into conscious awareness. Take some time and ask yourself, what do I believe about myself that limits me? What stories do I tell about what I can and cannot do? What possibilities have I dismissed without really examining why? Write them down. Look at them. Because once you see them clearly, you can begin to question them. Second, challenge these beliefs with evidence. For every limiting belief you hold, ask yourself, is this actually true or is this just a story I've been telling myself? What evidence do I have for this belief? Is it based on current reality or past experience? Am I confusing a temporary situation with a permanent limitation? Often when we examine our limiting beliefs closely, we find they're built on very shaky foundations. One experience, one comment, one failure that we've blown up into a universal truth about ourselves. Let me give you an example. If you believe I'm not good with people, ask yourself, is this really true? Have there been times when I connected well with someone? Have there been conversations I enjoyed? Am I confusing being introverted with being unable to connect? Am I comparing myself to the most extroverted person I know instead of accepting my own style of connection? Usually, when we dig deeper, we find that our limiting belief is not a fact but an interpretation. And interpretations can be changed. Third, take small actions that contradict your limiting beliefs. You don't have to make massive changes overnight. You don't have to go from tied down to completely free in one dramatic moment. But you do need to start testing the rope. Take small steps that challenge your beliefs about yourself. If you believe you're not creative, try something creative, even something small. Draw something. Write something. Rearrange your furniture. You're not trying to become a professional artist. You're just collecting evidence that contradicts your limiting belief. If you believe you're bad at public speaking, speak up in a small meeting. If you believe you're not athletic, take a walk, try a beginner class. If you believe you can't learn new technology, learn one new app. These small actions are like the elephant pulling gently on the rope, testing it, discovering that maybe, just maybe, it's not as strong as you thought, and here's what happens. Each small success builds what psychologists call self-efficacy, the belief in your own capability. And as that grows, you become willing to try bigger things. You pull harder on the rope. You take more risks. You expand your sense of what's possible. It's a beautiful upward spiral. But it starts with small actions, not grand declarations. Fourth, reframe failure completely. As long as you see failure as evidence of your inadequacy, you will remain tied down. But what if failure is just feedback? What if it's just information about what doesn't work, guiding you toward what does? Every successful person you admire has failed, and failed repeatedly. The difference is they didn't tie themselves to those failures. They learned and moved forward. Thomas Edison tried thousands of materials before finding the right filament for the light bulb. When asked about his failures, he said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That's the mindset of someone who's broken free from the rope. Failure is not an identity. It's an event. It's not who you are. It's something that happened. And when you see it that way, it loses its power to tie you down. Fifth, surround yourself with people who see your potential, not your limitations. This is crucial. If you're trying to break free from limiting beliefs, but everyone around you keeps reminding you of your limitations, it's like trying to fly with weights tied to your feet. You need people who believe in you, who encourage you, who celebrate your growth, who remind you of your strength when you forget. Now, this doesn't mean surrounding yourself with people who never challenge you or give you honest feedback. It means being around people who believe in your potential even as they help you grow. It means distancing yourself from people who are invested in keeping you small, who feel threatened by your growth, who constantly remind you of who you used to be instead of who you're becoming. Sixth, develop what I call a growth mindset. This is the belief that your abilities, your intelligence, your talents are not fixed, but can be developed through effort, learning, and persistence. When you have a growth mindset, challenges become opportunities. Effort becomes the path to mastery. Criticism becomes useful feedback. And others' success becomes inspiration rather than threat. People with a fixed mindset believe they either have ability or they don't. They avoid challenges because failure would expose their limitation. They give up easily because if they have to work hard, it means they're not naturally talented. They see effort as a sign of weakness. And as a result, they plateau early and achieve less than their potential. But people with a growth mindset understand that mastery comes through practice. They embrace challenges because that's how they grow. They persist despite setbacks because they know that's part of the learning process. They see effort as the path to greatness. And they learn from criticism and are inspired by others' success. These people break free from the rope because they don't believe in permanent limitations. Seventh, reclaim your power from the past. So much of the elephant mindset is about letting your past define your future. Something happened years ago and you're still living as if it's happening today. Someone said something to you decades ago and you're still believing it. You failed at something once and you're still avoiding it. But he raised the truth. Your past does not have to be your prison. It can be your teacher, but it doesn't have to be your jailer. You are not who you were 5 years ago or 10 years ago or 20 years ago. You've learned things. You've grown. You've developed capabilities you didn't have before. And you have the power to decide what meaning you assign to your past experiences. You can see them as proof of your limitations, or you can see them as part of your journey. You can let them tie you down, or you can let them teach you and then release them. I want to tell you something powerful. The elephant doesn't need permission to break free. The rope isn't being guarded by anyone. The keeper isn't standing there preventing the elephant from trying. The only thing keeping the elephant tied is the elephant's belief. And the same is true for you. You don't need permission to break free from your limiting beliefs. You don't need someone to tell you that you're capable. You don't need external validation to start pursuing your dreams. You just need to challenge the rope. Now, I want to address something important. Breaking free is not about becoming someone you're not. It's not about pretending you don't have any limitations. We all have real limitations. The elephant, even when free, cannot fly. That's a real limitation. But the elephant can roam the forest, can live in a herd, can express its elephant nature fully. The question is not whether you have any limitations. The question is, are your current limitations real or are they beliefs you've outgrown? And even your real limitations don't have to limit you as much as you think. I've met people with physical disabilities who achieved things that able-bodied people only dream of. I've met people who started with nothing and built remarkable lives. I've met people who were told they'd never amount to anything, and went on to make profound contributions to the world. Not because they had no limitations, but because they refused to be defined by them. There's also this beautiful paradox I want to share with you. When you break free from limiting beliefs, when you stop living the elephant mindset, you don't become arrogant or delusional. You actually become more grounded in reality. Because limiting beliefs are not realistic. They're pessimistic. They're distortions. True confidence is not about thinking you can do anything. It's about being willing to try things, to learn, to grow, to fail and try again. It's about knowing that your worth is not dependent on your performance. So you're free to attempt things without your entire identity being on the line. Let me share something else with you. The elephant mindset doesn't just affect you. It affects everyone around you. When you live small, when you don't pursue your potential, the world loses your contribution. The gifts you could have given remain locked inside.